when I do my meditations, I run through my chakras, all the way from my root to my sacral to my solar plexus, all the way up to the crown. And as I bring energy and bring my awareness into those spaces, I envision, I feel what those chakras represent. So when I get to my heart space, there's glowing love here, right? There's glowing love for myself. There's glowing love for my family, the community, for the world. People that have done me wrong, I'm sending love to everybody. Nothing can break this love.
Hey guys, it's Mike. Welcome back to the Best Medicine Podcast. Today's guest, Greg Kinsey, is a practitioner of meditation and holotropic breathwork and one of my best friends in the world. What I love about Greg is he's kind of breaking the mold of what it looks like to be mindful and masculine. Normally, you think a breathwork teacher fresh off an Instagram post in Bali, long hair, sitting Indian style, right? But Greg is a regular guy. He's a former D1 athlete from Philly who's transformed his life by learning and dedication to meditation, epigenetics, and breathwork. It's honestly very inspiring. We learn a ton of tangible takeaways in the episode about the science behind breathwork, managing emotions, quick tips for breathwork, and meditation for beginners. We also take a deep dive into the different brain waves while practicing and why it's important. Now, I hope you enjoy, and please don't forget to repost anything you enjoy or resonate with on IG and tag us at the Best Med Podcast. We're also on TikTok. We're doing a bunch of giveaways and reposts for people who share, so I really appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Thanks.
Let's go.
I've always wanted to do that to start one.
I know. Your
We've
life
got
is made now.
a very special guest, one of my best friends in the world, an incredible human being, an okay basketball player, my cornhole partner, and honestly, one human being I've seen like transform in an incredible way more than anybody else, which has been awesome. So we are talking to Mr. Greg Kinsey. We're going to talk about breath work. We're going to talk about epigenetics. We're going to talk about his intention series, a bunch of dopamine tricks, a bunch of really, really good stuff. But, I think earlier we were obviously talking about sovereignty and what that means. I think we'll circle back to that. But I really want people to hear a little bit about your backstory, Greg.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've found so fascinating about your story is often when people think about breath work, and you're a certified breathwork teacher now, and when people think about breath work, especially guys and athletes, they immediately think it's like some girl wearing like a flower dress dancing in a field, and this isn't for me. And you're a dude, you played college basketball, Division I. And I feel like it's awesome to have a male perspective on it too. So I would just love to hear a little bit about how you discovered breathwork and really like what it's done for your life.
Yeah. So I think it probably makes the most sense to kind of go back a little bit to pre-breathwork because it really started with meditation. So back in, I'd say 2016, 2017-ish, I started dating a girl, and she was pretty heavy into meditation, and she said, I think you would benefit from meditation. And by the way, that girl is now my wife. So it's all worked out.
What was it you were doing that she was like, hey, you need to meditate? Were you just being crazy?
So this is 2016, 2017. I was living up in the Hollywood Hills. This is when, I was partying pretty heavy. It was the days of Warwick on Wednesday, Hyde on Thursday, Friday might have been a mellow dinner at wherever, and Saturday was One Oak, and Sunday was It was just like constant partying and just like getting after it. And she was like, I really think you need to meditate. So I started to meditate, and after I started to experience meditation, I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel amazing. I feel more appreciative. I feel more introspective. Now, fast forward a year, we broke up. And when we broke up, I had a really difficult time. And I remember somebody recommended reaching out to this gentleman named Shalom in New York who led Reiki sessions. And I get on the phone. It was actually a FaceTime with Shalom, and we're having this conversation. I'm like, I really need to get over this breakup. Like, it's just killing me. And he said, okay, well, what are you doing right now? I was like, well, I meditate every once in a while. And he's like, well, how do you feel? I feel great. Meditation is amazing. He said, well, how often do you do it? I said, probably 2 to 3 times a week. He's like, oh, well, why don't you do it more often? I said, I don't have the time. I'm super busy. I do medical device sales. I work with spinal surgeons. I have a very busy social life. I like to go to the gym. I had every excuse in the book. He's like, I get it. We're all super busy. But let me ask you, how often do you brush your teeth? He's like, multiple times a day. He's like, how often do you shower? Every day. He's like, so what you're telling me is that your hygiene and your physical appearance is important to you. What about your mental and emotional health? And that's when one of the light bulbs went off. I said, God damn, you got me.
Wow, that's a good way to put it.
And it's absolutely right, because, you know, and I'll kind of get into, you know, what a unhealthy mental and emotional state can do for us physically. But he was absolutely right, especially now, you know, that conversation occurred in 2018, and now it's 2022, and anxiety is through the roof. And, you know, some people say we're more divided than ever. I don't believe that, but, you know, if we don't take, you know, a grip and take control of what's going on internally, then any external stimulus within our environment will dictate the state of our being. And there's tools and resources, which I'm sure we'll get into today, where we can implement those into our lives and really, you know, take the bull by the horns. And I call it becoming the best version of ourselves. And, you know, one of the other things that Shalom talked about within the conversation I had with him was, you know, when I went to him, I said, I need to get over this relationship. And he was like, I'm not going to help you with that. I'm like, well, why am I paying you $100? This is a waste. He was like, what we need to do is we need to get to the root of your shit. So he's like, we need to get to the root of your stuff. I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, tell me about your childhood. Tell me about what you experienced from your mother and your father. And my mom and dad, they're never married. My first memory as a human being is my parents arguing. And it was a very, you know, difficult relationship between them, and going back and forth as an only child. I had nobody to really lean on. So we go through this Reiki session, and afterwards, you know, we ended with a meditation. And that whole week, I'm meditating, because he challenged me. He said, I challenge you to meditate every single day for 30 straight days. And I had just these moments of pure introspection in regards to my childhood. And again, another light bulb went off, and I said, oh, these things that I experienced in my childhood, and these traumas and this pain that I experienced in my childhood, is affecting me in my present moments as an adult. So what I had to do was I had to go back to those childhood traumas and those experiences, and I had to heal from that. So one of the things I did was, and I have a good relationship with my mom. My dad's my go-to guy. That's a homie. But I had to call my mom and say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for, you know, the way I reacted in a lot of situations. I always sided with dad, and, you know, for whatever it's worth, like, I love you so much. I appreciate you, and you have these amazing qualities that I think I've taken on. But, you know, I hope that, you know, we can continue to grow from this. And it was a beautiful conversation, because I was super vulnerable. I was more vulnerable with her in that moment than I had ever been in my moment. And it was kind of like this feeling of like, this release. And it was like this understanding that I cannot change the past. The past is what it is, but I can detach from the emotional experience of the past. So they no longer have an influence on my present moments. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the third part of the interaction with Shalom, I called him about a week or two later, and I told him about everything that happened with my mom and how great I was feeling. I was meditating every day for, 2 weeks up to that point. I said, we gotta have another call. We have to have another Reiki session. He was like, no. I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I'm willing to pay you money. What do you mean, no? And he's like, my job, my role is not to get you on a hook for 10 sessions. My job as this healer is to bring awareness and have you understand the path that you need to take every single day to become better.
Teach you how to fish.
Yes. What's the point in having another session? You already know what to do. And as I've gotten into, leading meditations and facilitating breathwork sessions, that conversation with Shalom has always stuck with me, because I see so many people within the space, and you see it with therapists as well, where they're like, okay, sign up for 10 sessions for $20,000. But it's like, what if I feel amazing? What if I have this epiphany after 5 sessions? What am I paying you for 10 for? Right? So, and this isn't to knock anybody that's financially benefiting from meditation or breathwork or therapy, because people need to make a living for themselves. But I think that conversation with Shalom, just like I said, it just, so many light bulbs went off through my interactions with him.
Yeah. put you on a new path. I think, we talked to Golden about this as well, and a handful of other people. It's wild how childhood traumas end up having such control of your life as an adult, right? And you don't think about it until you go in and unpack it. And that's honestly what I do love about breath work and about meditation, is that it gets to the subconscious level, and most of your life is ruled by the subconscious, and you just don't even realize it. So I'd love to hear how you've kind of tapped into that with meditation, because I'll be honest, man, meditation is very difficult for me.
Sure.
I love breath work, and we'll chat about that, but when most people think of meditating, and I've seen it firsthand, you're a guy who will meditate like an hour straight, like it's nothing, like on vacation. We're on vacation in Mexico, and he's taking time out every single day to meditate. It seemed like 5 hours, but maybe it was an hour.
What a badass.
And it was just cool to see, but that...
He's enlightened, you're not.
Honestly, that's the net of... Yeah.
I think he's enlightened.
Yeah, I was like wondering where more tacos were and tequila.
Mike's like, buy me tacos.
Yeah. But it's cool to see, but I think the everyday person, at least for me, you kind of get intimidated by that. So I am curious of someone who wants to kind of get started into meditation, maybe some easy steps or something that's a little less intimidating than the Joe Dispenza 6 hours a day.
Sure. So I think before we kind of get into how meditation works, I think we need to understand the why of like, why do we need to meditate? Right. So if you look, you kind of mentioned like the subconscious mind, and we've talked about traumas a little bit. So 95% of who we are is rooted in the subconscious mind, right? So we have our autonomic nervous system. So things that we just do unconsciously, we don't think about. So we don't think about breathing. We just naturally do it. We don't think about digesting food. We don't think about cellular regeneration. We just have these body functions that just work like clockwork. But also within the subconscious mind are our traumas. Right. So if we experienced sexual abuse, emotional abuse, smothering, neglect as a child, again, that will reflect within our present moments as adults. Right. Also within our subconscious mind is negative self-talk. So if we grew up in a negative environment where our parents said, you're never going to be anything in life. Look at us. We're just a bunch of, losers living in a trailer park. You believe that as a child, because what you experience as a child becomes normal for you. You don't have anything to compare it to. You can't say, well, Johnny is living, this way in life, and that's normal. You don't know that. You are normalizing your experiences, right? So it could be negative self-talk that, was kind of ingrained in you at a young age. It could be something as simple as, your friend's making fun of you, your classmates making fun of you, and all of a sudden you have this feeling of not being worthy, right? And a lot of seminars and really beautiful experiences that I've had have been with people where they're like, I just don't feel worthy. I don't feel worthy of love. I don't feel worthy of success. But again, all that's rooted in the subconscious mind. So understanding that, meditation can be a tool to reset and rewire the subconscious mind. So the way that it works is we need to bring our awareness on one particular thing. So when that happens, that brings our brainwave activity down to a theta state. So right now, we're having a conversation. We're in a beta brainwave state. If we, went for a walk and start to daydream a little bit, we go down to an alpha, and then a stage a little below is called theta.
Okay, so it goes
I think it's
beta,
is it beta,
alpha, theta, delta.
beta, alpha, theta.
BAT D.
Correct.
There it is.
Beta, alpha, theta.
Theta.
Beta, alpha, theta,
Wow.
delta. And delta is the deep sleep stage. Okay. So if you watch a hypnotist, right?
Okay.
So think about the hypnotist experience. What do? They get a participant from the audience and they say, focus on this shiny object. I'm swinging in front of your face. Focus on this, focus on this, focus on this. 5 minutes later, that person that was just super introverted, super shy, is now all of a sudden on stage in front of thousands of people, hopping on one leg, barking like a dog, scratching their ass.
Yeah.
How does that happen? It's because they brought their awareness to that shiny object that brought their brainwave activity down to a theta state where you're more suggestible. And all of a sudden, the hypnotist starts to suggest these things they wouldn't normally do.
So it's almost like when you're in that state, the brain is malleable. The brain is in a position to change and learn.
100%. I mean, our brains are not these super concrete objects. I mean, if you understand, even on a super elementary level, neuroplasticity, like we can rewire. We are so adaptable.
Yeah.
Right? Like, and if we just make the conscious decision and effort to again, become the best version of ourselves through activities like meditation, where we can reset and rewire the subconscious mind, which is 95% of who we are, then we could start to become better and better. So we take this example of, working with a hypnotist, but now instead of somebody else starting to suggest things, now we suggest things. Not only do we suggest things, but we start to kick out the lies and the bullshit that we've told ourselves and we believe, and now we start to input the truth. We start to input the truth of who we are and how powerful we are, right? So when, for me, I'll bring my awareness, instead of that shiny object, I'll bring my awareness to my breath, okay? And we can get into this a little bit as far as like how we do, most of us do not breathe properly, but I'll bring the awareness to my breath and I'll focus on a nice, deep, long inhale through the nose. I'll feel my belly rise. I'll feel the ribs expand. I'll bring the breath up through my chest. I'll feel the chest expand. I'll bring it up through my throat, and I'll have a long, deep exhale. So I'm fully conscious, and I have my one-pointed awareness on the entirety of that breath. I'll do that, I don't know for how long, but I'll do that for a period of time. And again, my brainwave activity has slowed down. Now I'm in this suggestible theta state, and when that happens, I start to do the rewiring and the resetting. I am love. I am peace. I am joy. And I don't just say it to say it. I feel those words, right? So when I say I am love, I feel love. I imagine myself holding my boys. When I say I'm peace, I imagine myself sitting on the beach. Because what happens is when you make the experience in your mind real, your body doesn't know the difference between real or not. So what happens is the body physiologically starts to mirror the thoughts that are going on in your head. What's another name for that? The placebo effect. What you believe, your body will physiologically mirror.
Yeah,
right.
I mean, as you know, I used to do a lot of that, admittingly, unknowingly what the science was doing, but I used to do a ton of that in my boxing career. Right. I would visualize, and it's when I started working with that sports psychologist, and we would sit there, and I remember he told me once about a study, exactly what you're talking about, to where perception is reality if you can visualize it and feel it. And I think that's a really important point that you made. There's a difference between just sitting there and saying those words and actually like literally feeling them. But, you know, in this study in particular, what they did is they hooked people up to fMRI machines, and they were, you know, monitoring their brainwave activity. And what they found was that they had the group of people do two different things. One, they had them close their eyes and picture a tree with extreme clarity. What did the tree look like? What did the air smell like? What did the wind, you know, look like on the leaves? All their senses. And then in the second group, what they did is they had them actually look at a picture of a tree. So, but what was incredible is the exact same areas of the brain lit up when they were imagining a tree versus looking at a tree. Right. I think that speaks exactly what kind of Greg was talking about.
I'm fascinated with how much I'm really impressed that you have gotten into meditation, because so many guys are very, I don't know. I think a lot of men feel like meditation is for LA hippie girls who wear Lululemon and go to yoga class. And in reality, and we talked about this in the Sam Skelly episode briefly, I believe that men need meditation and breath work just as much, if not more, because we live in a society where men don't have the permission to emote the same that women do. I can go in that room right now and scream and cry, and Clay will be the rock, and he'll watch the entire experience and be like, okay, she's probably on her period, and God bless, you know, and it is what it is. And then I feel great after. Where if he came in and did that, I would kind of look at him weird, which is sad, because a man should be able to express all feelings, anger, sadness, confusion, and scream and cry. And I've just seen so many men respond very well to breath work and very well to meditation. So one, I'm curious as a man, why you think it's important that men stay open-minded to meditation and breath work. And then how has it made you a better partner and parent? And I can imagine if you're meditating an hour a day, you are so much, your parenting is probably a lot better than someone who might not be taking that moment for themselves, even if it's 5 minutes, you know?
Yeah. I would like to think so.
I mean, I would like think so, right? Yeah. Like if you're getting yourself centered and grounded, you're less likely to lash out at your kids when you're like, oh, why are you doing that? You know?
It's interesting. And we'll talk about the necessity for men to engage in these activities. But one of the things I start doing with my oldest son, Jalen, who's 2.5, is that we start to say our affirmations. So right after he brushes his teeth, I'll hold him, we'll look in the mirror, and I'll say, all right, Bubby. I call him Bubby. Repeat after me. Okay. I love mommy. I love mommy. I love daddy. I love daddy. I love Kai Kai. I am patient. I am. So he'll just repeat these affirmations, right? And says, I am helpful. I am a hard worker, right? And the way I look at parenting is I'm not going to remove the struggles out of his life. He needs to encounter struggles, but I feel like through these affirmations that will get rooted into his subconscious mind, because again, what he experiences right now as a child is going to be imprinted into his subconscious mind as being normal. So when he does experience struggle, he can say, I'm a hard worker, I'm determined, I'm persistent, but it's going to be on a subconscious level. He's going to have no idea where it stems from, but that's going to be who he is. So he's going to be able to say, man, I took that L, but that L is a lesson. I'm persistent. I got this, right? But kind of talking about the need for men to engage in meditation and breath work. I think especially like, Mike and I, we've had these conversations a number of times, is that, our parents' generation, especially, and generations after that, or before that, there was a stigma like, be man, suck it up, like fight through it. But what happens is when you, and this goes for women as well, but when you suppress emotions, that becomes disease. So what happens is, and this has been shown in a number of studies. Gabor, in my opinion, probably one of the top psychologists. He's referenced a number of studies where there was a British surgeon who looked at lung cancer, and men that felt like they had to suppress their emotions had a 4-time greater chance of developing lung cancer. They also had a 10-year study, I forget the name of the country, but it was former Yugoslavia. And the men that felt like they had to suppress their emotions, and granted, this is very subjective, but the men that felt like they had to suppress their emotions had a 40% greater incidence of cancer. 40%.
Oh,
40 times.
Amen. Right? And the heart attacks.
Right. There's huge merit to that. And the heart attacks we talked about. Go ahead.
Women don't really get heart attacks. When's the last time you heard of somebody's grandma getting a heart attack? It's always somebody's dad or grandpa. So I started asking my friends who are health professionals about this, and they said that, yeah, it's proven, or there's some studies that it's majority men who are experiencing them. And I don't have data to back this up necessarily, but I feel as if the reason the heart organ is failing men, or is breaking down in that moment, is because of suppressed.
Our men do not
emotions.
Operate from the heart space.
Yeah.
When I do my meditations, I run through my chakras all the way from my root to my sacral to my solar plexus, all the way up to the crown. And as I bring energy and bring my awareness into those spaces, I envision, I feel what those chakras represent. So when I get to my heart space, there's glowing love here, right? There's glowing love for myself. There's glowing love for my family, the community, for the world. People that have done me wrong, I'm sending love to everybody. Nothing can break this love, right? And I think the more we can operate, because I think a lot of us, especially men, we operate from this place of like logic and reason and facts. Sometimes we need to tap into our heart space and just operate from a place of emotion and love, right? Because when we suppress that, here's what happens. What is sadness or anger? That's emotion. That's internal feeling. So what is emotion? Emotion is energy in motion. So we suppress that, right? And as energy in motion, it needs to go somewhere. But we're suppressing it. It can't be released. Therefore, it becomes very uneasy. It becomes dis-ease, right? So that energy we're suppressing transmutes into disease, right? So, it's not necessarily rocket science, but as men, I'd say probably the most difficult thing I've had to do is step into my vulnerability, right? Step into what I call truth, right? This is what's affecting me, and I'm going to take ownership of my shit, and I'm going to become better, because I think we need to find this balance between, okay, let's be able to, express our emotions, express what's going on, but also take ownership of our shit, because it's not our fault what's happened to us, but it is our responsibility to become better from that.
Yeah. That's a great way of putting it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our dad had a heart attack a few years ago and he survived, but it was funny because when I walked into the hospital, he said, I can't believe this happened to me. And our dad is somebody who I wouldn't say has managed or expressed emotions well in his life, and is very stubborn, and is the epitome of holding anger in and a lot of things in. And I looked at him and I said, I I'm not like, it makes so much sense.
There's no surprises. Yeah.
It's no surprise that you had a heart attack. You are the poster child of someone who should have had one because you haven't dealt with a lot of your emotions or expressed them. Yeah. And so I'm really grateful that men are now realizing it's okay to cry. Now, if it's every day, all day, I mean, maybe you're a sissy. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's like, go ahead, let it out. We're these vessels, we're these meat suits, and these emotions are coming in us like waves. And we think that we're supposed to be happy and feel good every single day. And we're not. We're here to experience the entire spectrum of emotions. And if you feel anxiety for a few hours, it's not like, oh no, this is childhood trauma or what's wrong with me.
Right.
Just, it'll go by. It'll pass just like everything else. You're allowed to feel sad one day. It's interesting how we label these emotions so much and we hold on to them.
Sure.
Right. Like, oh my gosh, am I depressed now because I had a day where I felt it? Or am I an anxious person now because I had one day of feeling that emotion, instead of just saying, all right, it's going to pass just like everything else. It's going to flow through me. Who knows what it's from? There's a million reasons why you could be experiencing that right now. Yeah. I've been working with that. It's like, if I have a day where I feel a certain way, it's okay to feel that way versus thinking there's something wrong with me. I feel like the personal development space sometimes goes too far, and then they make people think like, Sandra, you've been anxious for 2 hours today. What childhood trauma is this? And it's like, maybe she's just anxious. Her hormones, biology, the day. I mean, there's so many variables to this vessel. So not labeling it allows you to release it and be like, I'm sad right now, and I'm sad, and it's going to go away.
And it'll pass.
It will pass, but things like breath work and meditation can help us to ensure that we usually are feeling joy and happiness in these emotions that we want to feel. But I mean, you've dealt with this so many different, you've experienced more of the spectrum than I even have. The highest highs in your career. I mean, elation. You've been in a ring where you felt like your dopamine and your oxytocin was probably just like through the roof. And then you've also dealt with depression. So how fucking cool is that? That as a human, you've actually felt all of it. But it's interesting that you almost can't label either one. It's like, life is that dance, right? And you've done psychedelics and you've experienced craziness. So you've actually experienced a lot of what it's like to be a human.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because someone the other day asked me if I could go back to my 18-year-old self, or 20 when I turned pro, would you do it all over again? And I said, yeah. And it's because it made me who I am today, through better or worse. Mm-hmm. And I think loving your own fate through better or worse has been incredible, and just being like grateful for it. Like what did I learn from those really dark, bad times? And then, how can I become a better human from it? But I wouldn't be the person I am today without it. Even though I still deal with pain, I'm grateful for it now, which is interesting.
Yeah. And, it's funny, like obviously, you're one of my best friends in the world, and we've kind of been on this journey and been on this path, just becoming better, right? We have certain things we're pursuing, but I think having that network of people around you to support you, and obviously we're still gonna like make fun of each other and shit on each other like all day long, like that's what we do as friends. But there are those times where we just need to just like create that space and share. And I thought it was so amazing. It was a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, where Paddy the Baddy, the UFC fighter, he had a fight, and a couple of days before, or maybe like the day before the fight, his friend committed suicide. And after the fight in the ring, as soon as he won, he spoke on, hey fellas, like we need to come together. Like if you need a shoulder to cry on, like cry on your homie's shoulder. You don't have to bury this and then have that ultimate, decision of committing suicide that you can't take back. And I thought it was such a beautiful thing to see this badass fighter who just won, and you being a badass fighter, 21-1, one of the best in the world, and now you have this platform where we can speak about this. Yeah. And obviously, again, it's super important to find that balance, because you don't want to be, okay, I'm crying today and I'm crying tomorrow, right? Like, let's find that balance.
Of course.
But I think it's such a beautiful thing.
That does break my heart that suicide, depression, and heart attacks are all significantly higher in men than women.
Yeah, without a doubt.
To me, immediately the answer is suppressed emotions. Yeah. It's the species that, one, you guys usually don't have as much community. Women get together in circles and we literally talk about how we're feeling. That's literally what women do. Is we are the creature that, let me call my friend and rant to her, or tell her how I'm feeling for an hour. I mean, I do that a few times a week with girlfriends. I just hold space, as cheesy as that is to say, hold space for them, whatever it is they're going through. And as much as it may seem silly, it's actually really healthy that we do that. But men, how often do dudes call each other and they're like, "What's up, Brian? I'm sad. I'm sad." Right? Like,
Sad, bro.
Dudes should do that. Like, "Hey, Brian, what's up? Hey, Packers win? Yeah, okay. I'm sad." No, I'm serious. And they should be like, "Yeah, Sean, it's okay to be sad. Tell me about your day." Like, dudes don't do that, but they should, because then if they did as well, then you guys wouldn't be dealing with as much shit later on in life, like heart attacks. I just dudes need to be able to have a circle where they could talk about their feelings.
Yeah,
Right?
I don't know. I don't know what that looks like.
Dude circles.
A dude circle. Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Therapy. I don't know. Just calling your friend and not feeling weird about it. Like, you guys have that relationship where maybe it won't be 6
definitely
hours,
do.
but you
Yeah.
could call Greg and be like, "Greg, I'm going through something right now. I just need you to listen to me."
Well, and that's why
And that's
Greg
real maturity.
has been and will be one of my best friends forever, because exactly like he said, there needs to be a balance, right? There'll be times when if he walks in wearing something stupid, I'm gonna call his ass out. Like, it's gonna be funny. But there's also times where I'm gonna call him and be like, "Hey, dude, I'm struggling with this. Like, what do you think?" Like, we're sitting down. We were just like at the beach not even that long ago talking about deep stuff. So I think it's good to kind of have like a little bit of that balance.
Yeah, I mean, true friendship is not only being there for each other in the highs. Life is both. Life is the highs and the lows. So I argue that friends that are only there for people when shit's really good and when you're in a ring fighting and everyone thinks you're the coolest dude ever, that's part of who you are, but that's not the entire encapsulation of who you are, Mike. You know, like you're all of it. So it is cool to have friends, especially guys, who can see you for all of it versus like, "Oh, I only love you and you're only my friend when you're up here at this point in your career."
Which I got a lot of, for sure.
Yeah, so it's interesting.
And you know what's fascinating? One of my favorite authors is Napoleon Hill. So Napoleon Hill has written Outwitting the Devil and Think and Grow Rich, both written in 1937. And he mentions in both books, and I think this kind of will bring a full circle, one of the reasons that men and people do not speak vulnerably or pursue certain passions is fear. The fear of other people's opinion. Right? So that's the number one thing that will keep us from greatness. And I think right now we're this like very tribalistic society that's run by hashtags and buzzwords. And if we engage in a certain hashtag or buzzword or key phrase, we have this fear of being ostracized from our tribe. Right? So I don't want to be labeled a conspiracy theorist and be ostracized from my tribe, so I'm not even going to like dive into that space. I'm not going to speak on something that would seem super vulnerable because I'm afraid my tribe, my friends, are going to make fun of me. That fear of other people's opinion can keep you from health and from true greatness, I think.
You're spot on. I mean, some of the greatest creators, athletes, business owners, whatever it is, they really just didn't give a fuck what people thought. They're willing to fail. They're willing to, fall down and get made fun of.
Or they did care, but they put their purpose before the opinions.
It's better. Right. No, you're right.
I
That's
think
a better way
life's
to
always
put it.
about weighing things out. Do I care more about, let's say, this podcast? Okay, do I care more about this message and the listener who is really going to benefit from this versus the one person who might think this sucks?
Yeah.
Like you're constantly in life choosing. Choose which one means more to you, your purpose and your why and your mission, or the opinion of others.
Right. Like the famous saying, courage is not the absence of fear, but having fear and still like pushing through it. Right. So I'm with you. It's not
But it's also, one of the things we've spoken about is the man in the arena.
Yeah.
Right. Like I think it's so true. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody is a blogger. Everybody's a journalist. Everybody has an opinion on social media. And like Tom Brady had an amazing, I think like 10-part series on ESPN Plus about his whole career, and it's titled "The Man in the Arena" because everybody has an opinion about what he should be doing and how he should be doing it and all these different things. But it's like he's the man in the arena, just like you're the man in the ring. Fuck everybody else's opinion. I got to go through this stuff. So whatever I feel is going to serve me and align with the highest version of me, I have to do that regardless of bloggers and journalists and everybody's opinion on social media.
Yeah. No, it's super important.
The cheapest seats always have the most criticism, right?
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to circle back earlier. You were talking about because I'm genuinely curious because I need to get better at meditating.
Yes.
In the beginning, when you talked about your breath work kind of series, like I'd love to hear a little bit about someone who's listening who wants to get started. And we talked about being intimidated about it, but you started talking about your whole series and how you drop yourself into theta and then you start. I'm curious if you could break that down a little bit for us and like kind of walk someone through it, and then how often do you do it? How much time? I know for a guy like me, I like the structure. So if I kind of have like a plan written out, it'll help me be accountable.
Yeah. So I think even before we kind of get into that, I think a lot of people, they check boxes, right? So they say, I'm going to meditate, and they sit down for 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever it is, and then they're like, okay, time's up, and they get out. But we need to be super intentional with why we're doing it, right? And that's the same thing for going to church or synagogue, temple, whatever. Are you connecting with the words of Jesus? Are you connecting with the stories within the Bhagavad Gita, right? Like connect with it, feel it, right? And then for me, that's what I try and do within my meditation. So if I have my awareness on my breath, I am fully in tune with the sensations of my body that the breath brings, right? Because that, again, meditation is one-pointed awareness. So if my one-pointed awareness is on the fullness of my breath, I'm going to drop into that theta state. So, I think if I understand the question correctly, for people that have difficulty meditating, focus on one thing, right? Because that focus on one thing will bring your brainwave activity down and you will get into that meditative state. So that one thing could be the breath. That's kind of been my go-to because in my opinion, from experiencing conscious breathing, whether it be holotropic breath work or just the breathing that I do at the beginning of my meditations, conscious breath is the greatest gift we can give ourselves. And I'll get into that in a second. But ultimately, if I focus on my breath, if I focus on the fullness of my breath, if I do that for 5 minutes or I do that for 10 minutes, I feel great afterward. I don't need to do anything after that, right? Because what you're doing is you are training your mind and you are rewiring your mind to say, I can do this. I can focus on my breath. Another thing you can focus on body sensations. So one of the things I do occasionally is that I bring my awareness to my feet. Okay, what do my feet feel like on the floor right now? Okay, what do my ankles feel like? What do my calves feel like? What do my knees feel like? So I gradually ascend up the awareness. Now again, one point of awareness is on my body. Right. So whatever it is, or you see people, I think, the old image of meditation is somebody, sitting in lotus posture saying, Om, Om, Om. What is that? That is awareness on the word Om. That is a one-pointed awareness on the vibrations of Om. Right. So whatever it is, just focus on that. And typically what I do after I feel like I'm good. I'm in my zone right now, and for me, I've been doing it every day for years now. I know when that happens. If you don't feel that right away, don't judge yourself. Like, be proud of yourself. You're showing up for yourself. Like that's the most important thing, is that you set an intention and you sat down to align with that intention. So after you get into that Zen meditative state, what I typically do is I'll say my affirmations, like I said, because now my brainwave activity is in that theta state. I'm more suggestible, and I'm the one doing the resetting, the rewiring. A lot of times after I do my affirmations and I connect with the frequency of the words I'm saying within those affirmations, I will do a body scan. Right? I'll start from the tips of my toes and I'll bring the awareness up and I'll feel my chakras. And as I break up my chakras, I'll just connect with all that. And one of the things I also do within the meditative state is that I will focus on things I'm appreciative of, right? So I'll always focus on my boys. I'll focus on my wife. I'll focus on my life. Now what happens is in that state of appreciation, again, when I make that experience in my mind as real as possible, I'm thinking about, what does it look like? What does it look like to see my boys laughing and running towards me as I walk through the door? What does it feel like to hold them as I pick them up in my arms? What does it sound like to hear both of them laughing hysterically in the morning? What does it smell like for my baby's breath? Right? I'm not going to say my oldest child's breath because now it's kicking in the morning. But the more I incorporate the sensations into that picture and that experience in my mind, the more real it is. Yeah. So what happens is, again, like I mentioned, the physiology of the body starts to mirror that. So now all of a sudden I have dopamine and serotonin and I'm flying. I'm feeling great because I just tapped in to the appreciation that I have. If I don't have anything to be appreciative of, I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it up in my mind because, again, I don't know the difference between making it up in my mind and not existing. So when people manifest, that's kind of what they're doing. They're making it real in their mind so that as they go through life, they're going to act as if it's happening. And due to the law of attraction, what you project out is what you attract in.
Yeah. it's a good time to visualize things that you want too.
Amen.
Because if you every single day visualize, let's say it's the future home that you want, and you think about it and feel it, like even me, I can think of my dream home. It feels so good. It's bright, it's open, it's indoor, outdoor living. Like I can feel it. And if I do that every day, there's no doubt I will eventually have that home. I mean, how could I not if I'm so obsessed and focused on that and I can feel it in my body? The secret's to actually feel it and imagine that I'm walking through the house. What does it look like, right?
Yeah.
Versus just like, oh yeah, I want a cool house. And most people, that's how they live life. Oh yeah, I want this in life.
Right.
Okay, but actually feeling it, it's hard. But if you sit in it for a few minutes, I could imagine that you can get into you're playing pretend, basically,
time.
right?
It takes time. It takes practice. And I think for me, one of the more powerful meditations that I do every once in a while is when I have a conversation with my future self.
That's powerful.
Right. So I get into the meditative state. I imagine myself walking through a field. In a distance is a guy. He's standing there. And as I walk up, he looks familiar. And then he looks like me in 5 years.
What's up, man?
What's up, bro? But I have this in my head. I have this conversation with my future self. What is my future self doing? Where is my future self financially? How does my future self view the world? Right. So I have this conversation, or I have this idea of ideally where I want to be, how I want to be feeling in 5 years, and then I kind of backtrack and ask my future self, well, how'd you get there? Right? What steps did you take to feel like this, to feel so happy and to feel so blissful? What steps did you take to attain this financial wealth? Because a lot of times when we are the emotional participants within our human experience, we can't see the small steps we need to take. So a lot of times what really helps is we become the observer of our human experience and say, okay, this is where we want to get, but I need to take this step. I need to take this step. I gotta be diligent. I gotta show up every day. But if I keep on taking these steps, I can be in alignment. I will be my future self in 5 years.
Yeah, and it's much more than woo-woo. It's not just like envisioning the house or the car and then all of a sudden it happens. It's like what your brain is thinking of and constantly perceiving, and maybe you weren't noticing before, right? So, for instance, if you bought a red car before, or you bought any type of car, all of a sudden you see that car on the road like all the time, you know?
Right.
It was still there before, those red cars. Just now that you've been focusing on it and it's such a part of your life, you now see those cues and those directions that maybe you didn't see before. But I was going to ask you while you were saying that, because this happens to me all the time. What do you do when negative thought, or my left arm itches, or
Sure.
like and especially her, she has squirrel brain.
Mike has to fart. Like, what do you?
Yeah, like when I have all these ideas in my head, and I'm so hard on myself. I feel like, fuck, it's been like 3 of these in the past minute that like I'm not focused. Like, what do you do to kind of bring yourself back?
That's a great question. And it's something that I experience every single day. I've never had a meditative experience where something didn't pop in my head like, dude, why are you thinking about that? Or I create a story in my head and like, I don't know, 3 minutes later, I'm like, you've literally created this whole story that hasn't existed, that it doesn't serve you. It's not part of your future self. What are you doing? So when that happens, understand, hey, this happens. Forgive yourself and allow the breath to bring you back to the present moment, the present experience. That goes for meditating. That goes for being out to dinner with somebody. You find you're not being present within that moment. Take a deep breath. Connect with the breath, right? So, okay, my mind was thinking about something for a while. Okay, let me take a deep breath. Sensations of the body, full exhale. Because if you're fully ingrained within the awareness of the breath, you can't think about anything else. You think about the sensations of the breath. That's going to bring you back to the here and now. So, like I said, the breath and conscious breath is so powerful.
Hey guys, it's Mike here. As many of you know, sleep is one of the most overlooked yet important factors in our health and recovery. If you've been dealing with difficulty falling asleep and waking up tired and groggy after binging Game of Thrones or Love is Blind all night because you can't sleep, I've got you. We developed an incredibly tasty Sleepy Gummy line that has some amazing all-natural powerhouse ingredients in it. Now, some of the ingredients in the gummy are organically grown CBD and CBN. CBN, known as cannabinol, is a compound extracted from hemp that's non-psychoactive. Don't worry, Mom, it won't get you high. But it contains powerful, relaxing properties known to improve the quality of REM sleep, and we all need more of that. We've also got myrcene in there. It's a natural compound found in plants that promotes a calming, sedative effect to help you fall asleep faster. And we've also got melatonin, another natural occurring hormone that regulates the sleep-wake cycle, helps you fall asleep faster and stay asleep longer. So these are just a few of the ingredients packed in this gummy, but trust me, this is our best-selling product for a reason, guys. I can't tell you how many people come up to me or DM me telling me about how Sleepy changed their life. You've got to try this out. And exclusive to the Best Medicine Podcast listeners, we're offering a 20% off code on Sleepy Gummies and all Soul CBD products. Just use the code TBM and make sure to let us know what you think. We've got over 6,000 5-star reviews now, and I'm proud of the quality and efficacy of our products. So go use code TBM at mysoulcbd.com and enjoy.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people think they're doing it wrong, so they quit. I'm doing meditation wrong. I was laying there and I had my Lululemon pants on and I had my crystals and I was playing the music and I had the app guiding me, and then you're like, what's for dinner? Or what did my husband say? Or, oh, what did that girl say to me in 5th grade? Like all these weird squirrel thoughts are coming to you. Oh, my email. And then they think, oh, I'm doing it wrong, when they don't realize that that is the experience.
That is the experience.
We're humans. We have tons of thoughts rushing through our heads. So once I learned that, I realized there's no way to do it wrong. The only way to do it wrong is to just not try or to show up to meditation. So now when I do it, I do like guided, because I find that helps me to stay on track a little bit more with the apps or with the YouTube videos that guide you through it. But I just don't judge it as much. I'm like, okay, you're thinking about something so random right now. Come back. So random. Come back. So random. Come back. Because I think that, I don't know, I hope that boomerang of so random and coming back is training the brain to focus. Right? Because like, unless you're a shaman who lives in like Bali, like who's actually like, no thoughts. Right. There's no such thing as no thoughts. Like thinking of nothing is still soming, right? So like, I don't think people are just like, nah, nothing. Right. I don't know, unless you're Greg or a shaman, right?
No. Like I said, I'm like every single day I experience what you're talking about. Yeah. I just simply forgive myself and say, because I think ultimately, and I keep on referencing this, the higher self cares more about the intention than the actual result. As long as the intention is there and the energy is behind the intention, it doesn't give a shit that you're having a human experience and your mind is thinking about what you got to get to CVS. You're human. That happens. Yeah. Right? Forgive yourself. Take a breath. Back to the present moment. Let's go.
So if I do a 30-minute session and 17 minutes of that 30 minutes was squirrely, was it still a successful meditation?
Hey, if you have a 30-minute, if you sit down for 30 minutes and you have a squirrely monkey mind for 29 minutes, you're still meditating.
Oh, shit.
Focus on the intention. You are showing up for yourself. You don't become an expert at anything when you first start, but as you continue to do the work, that's what doing the work is. A lot of people within this, whatever you're going to call it, this spiritual space, they say, you got to do the work. You got to do the work. What does that mean?
I don't know.
To me, what that means is you should say, I'm going to show up for myself to become better. That's what that means. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about like breath work. Plant medicine and holotropic breath work, I think those, in my experience, have been activities where they bring awareness. Super, super powerful. They bring awareness to that childhood trauma or that negative self-talk. We understand the roots of why we feel the way we feel and why we show up the way that we show up. But once we have awareness, now we have to do the work. Meditation and sitting there is the work. Journaling is the work. Maybe going to therapy is the work. Maybe challenging ourselves every single day to say, you know what? I've been super negative. I've been pessimistic. Pessimistic. Right?
There it is. Pessimistic.
Yeah, one of those. About so many things in life. I'm going to challenge myself to compliment 3 people today. That is showing up for yourself. That is changing the way you have been before. And that's what doing the work is.
Wow, I guess I am not failing at meditation.
No, you're not.
No.
I don't suck.
You don't suck that much.
That much. You're just a little sucky.
Before we get to just a little sucky. Before we get to breath work, I'm curious, as is everybody, about psychedelics. What have you tried? What have you used? Have you yet mixed microdosing mushrooms with breath work? Because it's awesome. Give me the lowdown. I haven't done a lot. I've only done. Cop? Tell us exactly what you've done.
You're recording, right?
I've only done mushrooms and a little bit and a heart opener. I did a similar ceremony.
Sassafras.
To what Mike did. Mine was called something. It was called Kana. Have you heard of this?
I've never. No.
It's the plant form or the plant version that mimics MDMA. And it was awesome. I mean, it was beautiful. I I already have very healthy serotonin and dopamine levels, but yeah, I felt like a stick of butter that melted on a pan and I just sat there and stared at the wall for 5 hours. So I don't know if that was productive, but I do actually feel like it probably was. Yeah. So that's been my only experience. And some microdosing. I did microdosing for like 90 days and I really liked it. But I'm curious what you have done and your thoughts on it.
Yeah. But by no means am I an expert. I've experienced psilocybin, sassafras. I've done 5-MeO DMT 2 times.
Where you die for 10 minutes and come back? That's what I heard it is.
It's pretty gnarly. I think, when people ask me, what was it like? I just don't think the human vocabulary can fully encompass the experience. It's so deep, it's so profound. But I definitely did have the experience, or felt like I died, right? And then I was reborn. And the first time that I experienced 5-MeO DMT, I had a lot of fear, right? I was holding on. I did not want to let go when that moment came of like, you got to let go, bro. And I eventually did. And when I came to, it was super beautiful because my first conscious thought was of my wife and my son, because this is before my second child was born. And then I just did it in May for the second time, and very similar, but I didn't have the fear that I did the first time. I was ready. So when that time came to say, you got to let go, you're going to die, I was, hey, no attachment, let's roll. And then I came to consciously again. And again, first thought, my boys and my wife. And I cried just tears of joy. And I think like having my experience and other people that experience plant medicine, there's this universal kind of feeling that people have when they come out of it. And it's a feeling I have a lot of times when I do breath work and meditation, where separation is illusion. We're all connected, right? And anything that tries to divide us is just trying to benefit from that division. And it's just this feeling of one where you just feel like all this little bullshit that we bicker about, that we argue about, whether it be politics or race or, who's taking a parking spot in the Whole Foods, it doesn't matter.
It's a serious issue.
It's a serious issue.
Don't bring up the Whole Foods.
Erewhon is a little bit more serious, but no, it's like, you just realize like, man, all this stuff that I've been stressed out about doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah, it gives you incredible perspective. I will say that. And it's pretty wild how people that from all walks of life, when I've done plant medicine journeys, everything. I mean, the last one I did, you had everything from athletes to a guy that was a Navy SEAL to a mother to, it's just people from all walks of life from all over the world. And there's this sense of unity, and the next day or morning or whatever, when you go into integration and you start talking, there's so much commonality between what everybody says that it's fucking wild. It's really moving. And when you said everyone's connected, I mean, that's exactly how I felt and have felt as well during those ceremonies. And it's wild that someone who normally you'd have nothing in common with, all of a sudden we had the same experience, right? Or they're saying the same words, the same feelings, and you feel it on a visceral level. It's pretty incredible that this stuff grows from the earth, and God, the universe, put this on planet Earth for a reason. And it by far been some of the most profound moments of my life, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's so cool that we have, folks in the mainstream like Aaron Rodgers, who was just on Joe Rogan's podcast. He talked about his experience. Mike Tyson has talked about, his experience with toad and mushrooms. So I think it's great that, there is more awareness to it. But I think ultimately, it's like anything. You want to be responsible. You want to do it in a safe space. You don't want, Joe Blow, who was just selling meth last week, to administer your 5-MeO DMT experience. Joe the meth dealer.
Yeah, I love him.
Right? Because ultimately, again, you can have such euphoric experiences with mushrooms or DMT, whatever. But again, you should engage in it responsibly, right? Because you should have an intention. You don't want to, it's not a party drug. You should have an intention of, I'm doing this to get something out of it. I'm doing this to have forgiveness. I'm doing this to cut the cords of attachment from this trauma. Have an intention. You shouldn't, it's not like a every month thing to say, oh, I'm going to do it again just cause. What's your why?
Yeah, you can't do it just because it's trendy now. You have to be very careful and set the intention. It's funny, the first time I started microdosing mushrooms, I didn't really have an intention because I did the smallest bit. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going to go on a walk. And I see my neighbor walking his dog, and I just remember thinking, this old man, he's so funny. Like, there was nothing funny he was doing. But I'm on a walk with Clay, and he's like, "What's so funny?" I'm like, "That guy is just so funny. Like, what is he doing right now?" He's such, And it was such a funny experience because it was like, is it just illuminating how I already am? Like, I'm already seeing life through this comedic lens, and I don't take life that seriously, and so it just allows me to even enhance that even more. Like, everything is just hilarious. Like, it's great.
Yeah.
But it's not so much that I can't function in my day. It's just, for me, it exacerbates the comedic effect of this game called life that we're in. And we take it so seriously, and we have all these little problems. And it's like, guys, we're literally rolling around on a ball in space, and we're cucumbers. Like, none of this fucking matters. Like, it's all gonna be over, So like, no, I know.
Why you get all doomsday on us?
No, it's actually
The world's gonna end.
It's beautiful because it gives you permission to have the courageous conversation, or do the fucking crazy thing, or not care if Susie told you were stupid on the internet. Like, it doesn't actually matter, because what's next is hopefully gonna be just so much even cooler, So it's almost like that's at least how it's helped me so far. It's like, wow, people take this experience so seriously.
Right.
And I think the most spiritual people actually know about this levity. They're like, yeah, we'll go deep, but let's get back to joy and levity, because that's actually where we can manifest and really live. So I'm just cracking up in my neighbor for no reason.
I think you nailed it. I think you nailed it in the sense of, like, what are we here for? We're not here to, like, do spreadsheets and stress over dumb shit.
What are we here for?
We're here to. I think we're here to evolve and ascend and dance and have fun and be goofy and be silly. And that's, like, for me, one of the greatest joys of having kids. So I get to be a kid again. It's almost like I get to view the world through their eyes again. And I look at trees different now, look at flowers different now, because I'm like, what is it like as a 2-year-old to experience this?
To see a tree. What does a
like,
tree
seriously,
look like?
my son hugs trees. I'm like, that's pretty dope. I'm going to hug a tree too. Yeah.
That's why I can't wait to have kids, because I feel like I don't need an excuse to go do that shit, but it would be less creepy if I wasn't, like, at the water park alone. I'm like, oh, it's my daughter. She wants to be here. Loser. Move. Going down the slide. Right. Like, my mom has always told me that. She's like, Angie, having kids is not the end of your life. It's actually the beginning, because you get to be a kid again. And I'm like, I'm just going to hold that truth. And that's going to be my story.
It's true.
Because that's cool. Because who doesn't want to still keep being a kid and going to the water park and the zoo, and, like, you want to go do that stuff still, right?
Yeah. I'd rather do that than, watch some politicians debate about, some shit that they're lying about.
Yeah, right.
That they really could care less about.
Yeah.
I'm
curious what you think is the difference between meditation and breath work for somebody listening who's like, which one do I try first? And then for the person listening who's like, hey, I don't want to do psychedelics or plant medicine, which is totally fine. I don't think anyone should start with that. Can they start with meditation and breath work and somewhat get to that similar state? Have you ever had an experience where in one of your breathwork sessions, you were like, whoa, I felt God, or like maybe you had an epiphany similar to plant medicine?
Yeah. So for me, breathwork is like meditation on steroids. And a lot of people have described breathwork like 20 years of therapy in one experience. And the science on exactly in relation to the subconscious mind, how breath work truly works, is not as out there as it is with meditation. But my hypothesis is that with breath work, what happens is the cortex, the prefrontal cortex of your mind, is responsible for analyzing, right? So you're making sense of space and time. That's where your ego resides, and that's where you're just making sense of the world and your space within this world, your place within this world. And what happens is when you're engaging in holotropic breath work and you're bringing in a lot of oxygen into your body, you induce a state called respiratory alkalosis. And as you continue to do so, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system, and you're analyzing. Within the first couple of minutes, you're always going to analyze, like, what am I doing? Why am I breathing like this? Do I have to do something to do later? I'm getting a little cold. But then something happens where that analytical part of your mind, it shuts off. And you tap into the subconscious part of your mind. And again, like we said at the beginning of this, 95% of who we are is a subconscious mind. So it's like taking that bullet train to the subconscious mind after a couple minutes, and we see exactly the root of our stuff. right? So if people have an intention going into the holotropic breath work to say, I'm tired of feeling depressed, I'm tired of feeling sad, that breath work can help you get to the root and have awareness to where that stems from.
And what's holotropic? Tell us what that is.
So holotropic breath work is kind of like the breath work where you're laying down for probably like an hour or so, and it's just this repetitive breathing cadence. So it's all into the mouth, out to the mouth. So I tell people breathe 80% into the belly, 20% into the chest, and then release. So I go. So you're just doing that over and over again.
That's intense. That's the one I suck at. I'm not
Right.
good at that one.
Right. So, and it's amazing because after a while, you're not analyzing what you're doing. It becomes automatic.
Yeah.
And again, you tap into that subconscious part of your mind. And I don't think we've even spoken about this before, but it was a breath work that we did together, and Wilson was with us, and Stevie facilitated. And that was when I had this aha clear moment where I was like, I need to lead and facilitate breath work and meditation.
Really? Shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So
it was actually exactly, it was at your place in Venice. And afterwards we sat around, and it's such a beautiful experience. And we all sat around and we shared kind of like what came up for us in those moments. And I was like, oh, I need to do this. And I forget, that was pre-pandemic. So that was probably 2019.
Yeah.
I want to say. And it was like that moment of clarity. So it can be, the breath work can do so many different things, right? It can help you bring awareness to the root cause of your shit, or it can help you gain clarity on a certain path or a certain direction that, aligns with your higher self. And for me, in that breathwork session that we did at your place in Venice, that's what it did for me. It provided clarity. Or it can, help you forgive somebody that's done you wrong, because obviously when somebody's done you wrong, you have anger towards somebody. Anger and vengeance is such a low vibrational frequency. And what I mean by that, if anybody's interested in kind of getting into low vibrational frequencies or high vibrational frequencies, the book that I've read that does the best job of explaining that is David Hawkins' Power vs. Force, where he talks about, fear and anger and vengeance, pride, violence. Hey, they all register at low levels of vibration.
What's the highest?
The highest is bliss, joy, compassion, love, sympathy, empathy, appreciation. And so when we're talking about those states, we're talking about Jesus. We're talking about Paramahansa Yogananda. We're talking about Krishna and Buddha and Martin Luther King Jr., right? So like people that essentially have reached states of nirvana, samadhi, heaven on earth, right? People that we look up to, folks that are individuals that have religions based off of them.
Mike just pulled it up. Wow.
I've got my computer here. This is great because every single episode I'm just like pulling up tabs and just like buying books on the spot.
We can't afford a Jamie yet, so we are our own Jamie.
You're looking at him.
Yeah.
Greg,
Hey, Mike, pull that up.
Yeah, exactly. I'll pull it up. Two things came to mind. Well, I want to start with, okay, I'm listening. I'm in. Let's do holotropic breathing, right? I've never heard of it before. Let's do it. Where do I go? What do I do?
Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations?
Or if there's another type too, because that one, like you said, it can be more of a medicine that you do sporadically, right? Because it's intense. And then the vitamin one is more of like a daily one you can do.
Nice. That was my second question. Tap it up.
Our brains are starting to.
Boom.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a brother-sister connection.
Lined up.
There you go.
Respect.
It only took 30 plus years to
Booyakasha.
get that together. So I'd say, holotropic breathwork is really gaining a lot of popularity. So I think it's best when somebody facilitates it in person. So I do a simple Google search to see who facilitates it. Maybe do a little vetting, make sure that they're legit, they're doing it in a safe space. And if you don't know that person, if you don't know anybody that's experienced breathwork and holotropic breathwork, to be specific, if you don't know anybody that's experienced it with that person, do it in a group session.
Don't find some dude on Craigslist.
Yeah, all of a sudden you're in a van, and there's no windows. You're by yourself.
Yeah, and they're like, breathe, bro.
And if they tell you to take your clothes off, you're in the wrong place.
If Trent from Craigslist is like, come over, girl, let's breathe.
Let's breathe.
Like, okay, I heard it on this podcast. I'm here to holotropic breathe. He's like, yeah, girl.
Take these CBD gummies and breathe.
I don't know why I just visualized some girl Googling it, going to some
Immediately.
sketchy dude's house.
Yeah.
No, guys, if you're in a city, it's becoming more common. It's becoming a little bit more common, usually at yoga studios or wellness centers. They're now offering breathwork classes or online. Now there's a lot of apps
100%.
and YouTube videos. So now with the internet, you could actually lay down in your living room and be guided through a video.
But there's something about when it comes to holotropic, it's such an intense experience that, like Greg said in the beginning, I will say, don't do yourself the disservice of just doing it at home. I think the first time you experience it, it should be guided by a real person that knows their shit, and you're in a room either by yourself or even with other people. And I feel like that's so much better than the app. The apps will work. They're great. We talked to Sam Skelly about this. They will. But for your first time, I think it's kind of cool to experience at least the holotropic one in person. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, 100%. And again, like I said, with holotropic breath work and with plant medicine, in my opinion, they are tools to bring awareness to your shit, to your path in life, whatever it is. And then it's the stuff you do every single day, which is the little stuff. Right? It's the meditations, it's the journaling, it's incorporating those things, showing up for yourself to say, okay, how am I going to become a better version of myself than I was yesterday?
So if you don't have an hour, you can't do the holotropic. Do you have any other little breathing techniques that you do? Maybe they're quick, easy.
Yeah. So like I mentioned, conscious breathing is the greatest gift you can give yourself. And here's why. So the body can follow the flow of the breath, or the breath can follow the flow of the body. And what I mean by that is sometimes if we get into a stress out state where, say, there's a stimulus within our environment, you'll see somebody have a panic attack. They get these super quick, fast, choppy breaths. You get all freaked out. What happens is when you breathe in that manner, that stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, also known as your fight or flight. Now, when you're in your fight or flight, your adrenaline and cortisol, stress hormones, are released into the body. And that constricts your blood vessels, that speeds up your heart rate, and that floods the nutrient-rich blood into your extremities, your arms, your legs, for preparation for fight or flight. Now, unfortunately, that's how we were designed in primitive times, and we have not evolved to modern times of buildings and social media and 24/7 media outlets. But the same sequence of events happens when we see a stress or we experience a stress stimulus, right? So our boss yells at us, we see something on TV, where we get super freaked out and stressed out. Same sequence of events, adrenaline and cortisol, nutrient-rich blood floods our extremities, our arms and our legs, but we're sitting on the couch with a Slurpee eating Cheetos with cheese fingers. Right? We're not running from a saber-toothed tiger, but yet the same thing happens. And here's why it's very, very important, is because when we are in our sympathetic nervous system, when we're in fight or flight, our immune system tanks. Why? Because the nutrient-rich blood leaves our internal organs and floods our extremities for this threat that never happens. Now,
interesting.
And
what just went on in the world.
And here's something else that's super interesting.
Yeah, convenient timing.
Yeah,
Sorry,
right.
go ahead.
So when somebody's having a organ transplant, the physicians will administer stress hormones. Why? It's because that's going to weaken the immune system, so it cannot fight off this foreign object that's being put into the body. Right. Yeah. So you want the immune system to go down, so it's going to receive this, this liver, this heart, or kidney, whatever it is, and stress hormones do that. So we think about being in a state of stress all the time, our immune system is tanking. And then when our immune system is tanking and we're in fight or flight, we're not feeling good, the body wants to feel good. So what do? We grab some unhealthy food that's going to give us that spike to feel good again. But long term, it's poison. We're eating shit. But our body thrives for that. So to kind of bring it back to what you're saying, just like the breath can induce a state such as the sympathetic nervous system or fight or flight, the breath can also induce a state of our parasympathetic nervous system. So our parasympathetic nervous system is when we're in a state of cellular repair. So when I'm in a deep meditative state, I'm in my parasympathetic nervous system. I'm relaxed. I'm in cellular growth. I'm digesting food. Everything is in flow. So when I want to get into the parasympathetic, I'm going to have a longer exhale than I do the inhale. Right. So if you have somebody that has trouble falling asleep, aside from taking Soul CBD gummies, hey, let's go. What I would recommend is count the inhale. Right. So I might have an inhale for 4 seconds, I'm going to hold it at the top, and then my exhale is going to be 8 seconds. I'm going to do that over again and over again. And by exhaling longer than I do inhale, that's going to activate the parasympathetic. Now, if I want to consciously activate the sympathetic, now say I want to work out, or say I'm like a little bit tired, I need a little bit of energy. I don't want this 5-hour energy. I don't want this Red Bull. What I'm going to do is I might do a little fire breath. So I'm going to have more awareness and more focus on the inhale. Energy, inhale, oxygen, relax, parasympathetic, exhale, CO2 out.
That's a really good hack. It's like amping yourself up with fire breath in through the mouth, out through the mouth, right? Like getting ready to go do something, and then to go to sleep, you're doing the longer exhales, slower. You can literally regulate your entire system with your breath.
This is what gets me so geeked up and so excited, is that for me personally, once I've started to understand the science and once I start to experience all these things, I'm like, holy shit, we are powerful. I am powerful. I'm divine. I have so much energy. I can do so many things through the power of my breath. I can get healthier through the power of my breath. I can release feel-good chemicals. I can heal my body through a strong belief system, right? Because if I have a strong belief system, what happens is, like I said, the physiology of the body is going to mirror that belief system. If I have a belief system, my thoughts are going to mirror that belief system. And then my thoughts are going to lead to my words. My words are going to lead to my actions. My actions are going to lead to my personality. My personality is going to lead to who I am. But it all starts with belief system, right? And there's ways that you can foster that. The breath work, the meditation, the journaling, being more loving, challenging yourself to be more loving. Right? Like, we're so powerful. Like, all this bullshit of being these feeble, weak-minded, dependent beings that are so dependent upon everything outside of us, it's bullshit. It's a lie. People can benefit off of that lie. Who can benefit off your breath? Nobody. Who can benefit off of a belief system? Nobody. Take control of your shit. There are tools and resources out there. Reach out to me on Instagram, do a little Google search, just have that self-realization of how powerful we are.
Yeah.
Sovereignty. And we're full circle.
Sovereignty.
Yeah, we're full circle.
I mean, holy shit, when you think of what just happened in the world, I mean, I won't go too deep into it, but it is interesting to think that we were in a time where the media was spewing out so much fear.
Yes.
Right.
Nobody can argue with that. Whatever side you're on, whatever you believe, do you, but there was a lot of fear on both sides, and that suppresses the immune system. Plus wearing a mask, which equals lack of oxygen. Those two together is the recipe for anxiety and stress and getting sick. So it's like we had the perfect storm and the perfect formula, and that's messed up. So 2 years later, I'm just going to say it. That's messed up.
Yeah, and especially when you think about autoimmune issues, which obviously have affected me, but are affecting millions and millions of people. I truly believe that, yes, I had a gene. I was HLA-B27 positive, but how I started to get autoimmune issues was because I was constantly in fight or flight. And given that was my profession of fighting, I didn't know how to get out of that until after I retired. And that's really what's helped me, get into that parasympathetic on a daily basis a lot more and begin to heal. Because, God, I was so much worse off in 2013, 2014, like really bad than what I am now, and on 8 different medications and all that. And I really do believe that was like learning about the power of breath. And I picked up Joe Dispenza and all the things that Greg is so passionate about right now.
How else can you get in the theta state, you think? Like, what else can we do in life to get into theta?
I think
sex.
Yeah, post-sex for guys. I think the breath is. I mean, I'm a nerd for conscious breathing. I just think that the breath and conscious breathing is the best way to do it. I mean, anything where you're focused on one particular object. I'm not talking about the screens. I'm talking about if you're at the beach and you're just focusing on a cloud, right? And you're in this meditative state, focused on a cloud. You're probably going to be an alpha, but if you're really, really in that cloud, you might be in a theta. And there's also gamma. So gamma is a higher brainwave frequency than beta, and that's typically a a higher degree of perception. That's when you're learning. So, I mean, it's not super relevant to like we're talking about with like meditation and all that, but I think it was Joe Dispenza who talked about folks that are like in a really, really deep meditative state where you can see just like a lot of brainwave activity under the diagnostic tools that they use. They can get into a gamma state.
Wow.
Fact checking Greg here, which he's on point. Gamma, this is really cool, and we're staring at it now, and you can't see on the video, but gamma you have on top, exactly what you're talking about, problem solving, concentration, and it looks very volatile, back and forth, right? And then you've got beta waves, busy, active mind. Then you've got alpha, which is reflective, restful. Theta, which the word they're using is drowsiness. Any other words you'd use for that?
I would say relaxed. Meditative state.
Yeah.
I have like a whole like PowerPoint presentation, and I think I know what you're looking at right now.
Yeah.
There's different charts out there that will use different terms.
No, for sure. But it's so cool just to see, as we're kind of staring at a chart here of brain waves and exactly what Greg was talking about, the gamma and then beta, alpha, theta, delta. It is so cool to think about different brain waves and what that's doing to your body and to your thoughts and how that can ingrain into your mind. I think that's fascinating. And honestly, we've probably just scratched the surface, right?
Oh,
Talk about the next 25, 50, 100 years. Like at some point, and this is going to sound super woo-woo, we're going to be able to tap into this and no, it's not going to sound super woo-woo. It's just the truth. We're going to be able to tap into this and completely heal ourselves with extreme accuracy. I truly believe
Well,
it.
and sorry, to piggyback off of what you're saying, if folks kind of just do a little elementary dive into epigenetics, that's exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what epigenetics has shown is that 99% of diseases are not due to our genes, right? They're not caused by our genes. Only 1% of diseases out there are caused by our genes. There may be certain genes or certain diseases that correlate with our genes, but it ultimately comes down to, and this is what epigenetics shows, it's the internal environment of our cells and the environment of the organism as us that will express those genes as cancer or disease or not. Yeah. Right. So people say, well, my mom had breast cancer and my aunt has breast cancer. There is no breast cancer gene. You may be more susceptible to breast cancer, but if you make the same decisions and the same choices, if you're in the same environment that your mother and your aunt are in, then yeah, you'll probably express the same breast cancer gene that they did. But if you make different choices, if you're in a different environment, the likelihood of you having the same breast cancer experience is probably minimized to a certain degree.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So it goes back to kind of why I get so juiced up and excited is because you realize how powerful we are, and again, it all comes down to the choices that we make, whether it be with the food, the people we surround ourselves with, meditating, and engaging in certain activities. That's going to have a massive impact on the way we express ourselves to the world and our perception of the world.
Tell me about the Intention series, what you've just kind of started, and I want to hear about your why you started it. And I think it's really cool that you getting people together in person, teaching, community, and anybody in the Los Angeles, Southern California area that's kind of listening. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so the hiking, so it's with the Intention series. The first one we did was about a month and a half ago, and we met at Temescal Canyon, and we did like a little 2-mile hike. And afterwards, I got into the science of meditation, the why, and then the science of meditation, and led a meditation for the participants. And then next week, September 10th, we're going to meet at Holmby Park in LA, and we're going to do yoga in the park, and then Hannah is going to give an explanation on functional medicine. Now, the whole intention behind the With Intention series is, number one, to get people to connect with nature. If anybody understands the science behind grounding, getting out in nature, getting your feet on the earth is so important. It has so many different therapeutic benefits. And again, it sounds woo-woo, it sounds crazy, but there's science to back this. The magnetic energy of the earth can help you when you connect with it. So to connect with nature, number one, connect with each other, with like-minded people who have this growth mindset. Number 3, let's learn something new. Right. So with the first one, we talked about the science of meditation, the why behind meditation. This time we're going to talk about functional medicine and not just treating, our symptoms with a Band-Aid, but getting to the root of our shit. Are we deficient in certain areas? What diagnostic tools, whether it be hair analysis, urine analysis, blood work, that can show where we are deficient? Right, so we no longer have stomach problems. So we no longer have eczema or whatever skin rashes that we have. Because I feel like, and this isn't a knock towards any physician out there or Western medicine, but a lot of times we're just treating the symptoms. We're just treating, the surface level of our disease or of our ailment, of our shit. But if we understand the root cause of it, just like we talk about the root cause through breath work, we talk about the root cause through plant medicine, well, let's get to the root cause of certain deficiencies and malalignments that we may have within our bodies through understanding functional medicine. So kind of getting into that, and Hannah's going to get into that next week. And then the fourth intention of the With Intention series is to serve the community. So 100% of what we raise financially is going to go towards the SAFE Foundation. So SAFE Foundation stands for the Sister Angel Foundation for Education. It's run by my beautiful friend Nadine, and the participants within a SAFE organization are single parent mothers in low income areas that are continuing on with their education. So they just need like a little financial help so they can continue to go to school and take care of their families. Amazing foundation, amazing families. Just trying to bring people together, because I think ultimately right now we're in such a unique time where, depending upon what lens you're viewing the world, it can seem like things are falling apart. Or it could seem like, oh man, like I'm really like starting to learn some shit. I'm really starting to like learn truth, and this is really an exciting time. And that's the lens of perspective with which I try and view the world. Like, this is exciting. Like, yeah, shit's happening, but like it's all happening for a reason.
What are some of your favorite books or resources that we can leave everyone with? Maybe it's a podcast, an app. I know you read a lot. Maybe even just one or two that have really helped you.
So I'd say, on the spiritual side, I've studied a Hindu guru by the name of Paramahansa Yogananda.
Oh, shit. That's the bro.
That's the homie.
That's my homie.
You know Paramahansa?
Yeah, we dated. No,
Yeah.
Did you? For real?
No, I don't know.
Isn't he like 90 years old?
I'm assuming this guy is like 100 years older.
I don't think that much older.
Dead.
Oh,
He's dead.
wow.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Sorry, bro. Okay.
easy.
No. We just got back from San Diego. His center is in San
Beautiful.
Diego.
And there's also one here in LA. So
yeah.
the Self-Realization Fellowship Lake Shrine, right off the PCH. I've seen some things in the world. To me, it's the most beautiful place in the world. Wow. It is absolutely amazing. So Paramahansa Yogananda, he lived. He was born like late 1800s, passed away in like the 1950s. Was a Hindu guru, and he brought his love of Christianity, his love of Jesus within the Hindu faith to America. And he talked about a lot of meditative techniques that can help people ultimately reach the state of samadhi. So I studied him over the past year. I mean, and it's interesting, whether you're talking about Paramahansa Yogananda, whether you're talking about, and Paramahansa Yogananda, again, 1920s, 1950s, whether you're talking about Napoleon Hill, who wrote books in 1937, Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, cellular biologist, they're all saying the same thing. It's fascinating. I recently picked up Think and Grow Rich, because I'd never read it before, because I loved Outwitting the Devil. So I'm thinking, or I picked up Think and Grow Rich, thinking that let me get away from all this spiritual stuff and the science of breath and all this, like, the physiology of whatever. And I pick up Think and Grow Rich, and he's talking about the subconscious mind, and he's thinking about energy. He talks about the universal intelligence that Paramahansa Yogananda talks about. I'm like, I can't get away from this. Wow. There's this commonality that's timeless. So to answer your question, I love Paramahansa Yogananda for the spiritual side of things. I think to understand the power of breath, Breath by James Nestor is great. Illuminated Breath by Dylan Werner is also really good, because Dylan Werner incorporates different breathing techniques depending upon what your intention is with that breath. I think, what else? Joe Dispenza, all three of his books, The Placebo Effect, what other books?
Becoming Supernatural.
Becoming Supernatural, and then How to Break the Habit of Being Yourself. His books are amazing. Bruce Lipton, who in my opinion is a godfather of epigenetics, he has some really good books out. But I'd actually, with Bruce Lipton, I'd recommend YouTubing him because his interviews with Sean Stevenson from the Model Podcast Show, absolutely incredible.
Shout out, Sean.
Yeah, it's like really amazing, powerful stuff, and the way that he breaks down really complex cellular biology into concepts we can understand and we can incorporate. You're not going to find that in the book as much as you will within his interviews.
Yeah. Holy shit, man. I got to go meditate. I got to go ground. I got to just breathe more.
Yeah.
It really does help me.
Yeah.
It does. When I'm feeling like I'm anxious or I'm not present, breath is the secret.
I think the longer exhale than the inhale.
Like how long? Like.
Yeah.
Well, and here's the thing is that your heart rate will follow the rhythm of the breath, right? So if we have really slow, deep, long breaths, our heart rate is going to slow down. As opposed to, now think about it. What's a panic attack do? What's your heart doing? It's speeding up. Right. So it's interesting. So we didn't get into this, but there's something called the nocebo effect. So a lot of people are familiar with the placebo effect. So they take a sugar pill and they think the pill is an actual medication, and the body responds physiologically and with the release of hormones or whatever as if they are taking a pill. The nocebo effect is the negative belief that a doctor's suggestion or this pill or whatever they're doing is going to cause a negative effect within the body. Now, there was a case where a gentleman was in a clinical trial, and he didn't know whether he was taking the real drug or the fake drug, but he's depressed, whatever, and he takes all the pills in a bottle. Goes to the hospital, he's sweating like crazy, his heart is pumping out of control, blood pressure's through the roof, he's sweating bullets, and they push him to the ER, and he's like, I overdosed on all these pills, I'm dying. So they look at the bottle, and they call the physician, whose name is on the bottle. Physician comes rushing to the hospital, looks at the bottle, goes, dude, that wasn't even the real medication. But he believed it.
Yeah.
He believed that he took this medication. And actually, let me backtrack a little bit because I'm not even sure that that's necessarily the nocebo effect. But it does go to show the effect of our thoughts causing an effect within the body. But there are situations where, if there are negative verbal suggestions that a physician will give to a patient, the body will respond by producing certain chemicals that are related to anxiety. So, for example, in relation to pain, if a physician says, you know what, you're probably going to experience a lot of pain with this activity or this medication, the body will release something called CCK, which has anxiety-related properties to it. Right, so anxiety, state of stress. Now, if a doctor gives a positive verbal suggestion and says, you know what, you're gonna feel amazing, whatever, the body will create an endogenous activation of opioid neurotransmitters. Right, so it's a power of our words, power of suggestions.
Bedside manner.
Right,
I think that's why bedside manner is so important for doctors. One of the things, Greg, that we've asked. I feel like I'm always the one doing it. Do you want to tee this up this time?
Okay.
Why don't you tee it up?
Yeah, and we'll just
do something.
Okay.
For once.
Stop being a bump on the log.
I dated Yogananda. What's his name?
Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yeah, that was enough.
That was
my soulmate.
Is that the guy you met on Craigslist?
I was doing breathwork in his basement. So at the end of every episode, I don't even need to phrase it. We'll just say it. We want to know, what do you believe is the best medicine? Fill in the blank. The best medicine in life is. It could be something that helped you get through a hard time. It could be what just comes to mind right away. So far, we've gotten all different answers, and we want to know, what is the best medicine?
Well, look, if you guys don't know what I'm going to say, you haven't been listening to me the past however long we've been chatting here. I mean, the obvious answer for me is conscious breathing.
Love it.
All right.
Conscious breathing. That's phenomenal.
Breathing. You can activate, deactivate, stress, get hyped up, tap into your subconscious mind. It's the power of the breath.
Yeah, I love it. This was awesome, man. I know we talk all the time, but I still learned a lot.
So good.
This was great. where can the people find you? Where can they chat with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on IG, gkinsey23. I feel like I've found my purpose for being here. So I don't charge for meditation or breath work. I'm here to share. I'm here to serve. I'm not going to say this is the only solution, but this is what has worked for me. So as somebody that's here to serve, I just want to share this with other people. So reach out to me. We can set up a Zoom session. If you have a group of people that want to get together, especially if you're in the LA area, let's do it. Let's link up and let's talk about meditation. Let's experience meditation. Let's talk about breath work. Let's experience breath work. And I would love for people to come to the With Intention series if they can make it. Other than that, I have a nonprofit called Los Angeles Circle of Giving, where we help out people in the community that are going through a difficult time. And again, 100% of what we raise goes towards the intended cause. And add a little bit of transparency there. You can see dollar for dollar who donated, how much, and then you can see exactly how the money's spent. So we post receipts and checks, so you know what you give is what's being given to the community. So if I can help you, if I can serve you anyway, that's what I'm here for.
Love that.
Greg's going to heaven.
Greg, I was just about to say, what did you do today? What did you do with your life today?
Yeah, what did we do? We need to
do
donate.
We go to heaven by association?
Yeah, 100%. He's going to bring us with.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll put in a good word.
Like when he's at the door, he'll be like, "Hey, let them in."
I got a +2.
Yeah, +2.
I mean, he's definitely gonna outlive me. So how does that work? Do I just gotta wait in purgatory? I gotta wait.
Yeah, you just gotta donate all of the proceeds we get from the podcast to something.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. Well, great. So far we've made $0.
Like rabbits or alligators in Africa that don't have parents.
Yeah, right. No, but honestly, dude, it's refreshing. Greg has always been one of those people that just gives, and so he's not pitching anything other than helping people, and it's really cool. So
awesome.
Definitely go check him out on IG, say what's up, and if you're in the LA area, the Intention series is kind of growing and growing. It's going to be cool. Soul CBD is definitely going to sponsor it at some point. And I want to talk about like CBD anxiety. I'd love to talk at one of these things along with Angie too. Bring your boyfriend that you met on Craigslist.
Yogananda. Yeah.
He could say a few words.
If you brought Yogananda, I would love you.
You would just like shit your pants. You'd be like, "Oh my god!"
I really would.
You would fanboy.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Somebody that's been dead for 70 years.
What would you say? Like, hey,
you got anybody now that you would fanboy? That's alive.
Honestly, here's a funny thing. I was actually thinking about that this weekend. I swear to God, I swear to you, I was thinking about it this weekend. Here's why. Nice. So I went to a seminar that talked about the art of breath, and on Saturday they talked about the art of breath, and on Sunday they talked about the skill of stress. And I've been following this guy, Brian McKenzie, on his techniques with breathing, and he gets into the physiology of breathing, and just like I get completely nerded out on this stuff. So he led the seminar this weekend, and I was so excited. I was like fanboyed out. And obviously, like, we've lived in LA for a while, and, we see celebrities, singers, actors. Like, I've never been as like nervous but excited as I was talking to Brian, as well as Andy Galpin.
Yeah, dude.
And I know Andy Galpin is your guy, and you work together for some of your fights, but like and they're all within the same camp of the Andrew Hubermans and the guys that are really, they understand the spirituality side of things, but they're science nerds. And for me, like kind of what's taken me to the next level with meditation is understanding they're not separate. Like the metaphysics and the spiritual and the matter and the understanding of matter through chemistry and biology, it's all intertwined.
Dude, I can't wait to have Andy on the show too. She's been hearing his name a lot. We brought him up with Kelly LeVeque, who we interviewed earlier too. But to speak to your point, Andy had me doing post sparring. He was with me. We were getting ready for a big world title fight. After sparring session, he would have me doing breathing exercises. So in the back, right? And it was so cool just to kind of go through that. Yeah.
So I don't. So they kind of touched on that this weekend. I don't know if you guys want to go into it.
Yeah, dude.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got no time.
Okay. So
no one telling us shit. We do what we want.
We make our own rules. So here's what Andy was doing. So you were in your sympathetic. So you're in a fight.
Yeah.
Like you're literally in a fight. So you're in your sympathetic nervous system, but you chose to be there. You can expand and open up your window of tolerance of stress by choosing to engage in activities that activate your sympathetic nervous system. So if you want to engage in breathing activities such as holotropic breathwork, that will open your window of stress tolerance because you're voluntarily choosing to engage in this activity. If you choose to engage in sitting in a cold plunge for 5 minutes at 35 degrees, you are activating your sympathetic nervous system. And by choosing to voluntarily do that, you're activating your sympathetic nervous system and opening that window of tolerance. But when you are on the bridge and on the border of your sympathetic nervous system, you can actively do something to bring it down. So what Andy did with you when you were in your sympathetic nervous system and right at the edge of it, he had you engage in breathing activities to wind it down. Right? So you were probably doing some breathing exercises to relax a little bit more, to disengage from the sympathetic, to bring you more into the parasympathetic nervous system. Yeah. Because if we stay in our sympathetic, right? So say we get a hard workout in, and all of a sudden we get on our phone right away. Right? Yeah. We're just engaging in activity that keeps us in that state. But again, if we stay in that sympathetic nervous state, we are weakening our immune system.
Yeah. I mean, it's a couple things. One, we could do a whole podcast on that, but it's like do hard shit that gets you out of your comfort zone so that your threshold then for stress is so much higher. If you live a super soft life and you're not pushing yourself physically and mentally, when problems happen, you're screwed, right? So you raise that threshold is super important. And the second thing I thought of was my feeling when I did that, okay, and I'm in the gym, I'm in a boxing gym, was I was self-conscious. I was a little insecure because I hadn't seen a lot of other fighters do it, right? And you talk about boxing and sports in general, just constantly elevating their game in terms of nutrition and mindset. But, I've been in so many boxing gyms, been around world champions, seen some of the greatest in the world. I don't know if I've ever actively seen someone do breath work right after a sparring session. I know how incredible it was, but it's wild that my first instinct was I was a little self-conscious, like, what are the other guys thinking of me? And then after a while, that went away. But it'll be cool one day when that's just the fucking norm, when that's like what everybody does, right, in sports, because we now know with the science, it's a proven thing to work. So,
and not just life.
And yeah.
Right? Like, let's not be subconscious about taking deep breaths.
Yeah.
I think, and that's the other thing is that, I kind of mentioned earlier that we don't breathe properly, right? Especially when we think about, we don't use our diaphragm a lot. So a lot of times we suck in our bellies because we have the stigma that having a belly that hangs out is unattractive, right? So if we breathe and use our diaphragm, our belly's going to expand out. Let your belly expand out. Breathe deep into the belly.
Have a dad bod. Own it. Rock it.
Do that because your health, your health depends on it. Because if you keep your breath shallow and top heavy, you're inducing a panic state. Yeah. So if you take a nice deep breath and use the fullness of your body within that breath, you can become more relaxed. You can be stressed out and be panicked if you want. That's your choice. But if you want to become more relaxed, use your low part of your belly, watch your ribs expand, bring it up to your chest, and release the bullshit.
Wow. I want to go breathe now.
I know. I've been breathing very slowly throughout this entire episode. I've been consciously breathing.
There we go.
I feel very zen.
You're welcome.
Full circle.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you again, Greg. Love you, man.
No, I appreciate it. Love you guys.
Chat soon.